6:35. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're going to do things in a little bit out of order. I'm going to let Dr. Hakoy welcome you first because he needs to update the college community about SUNY's efforts with the coronavirus, COVID-19, and he's got to jump on a call with the chancellor in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to pass that over to him.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I wasn't originally going to be here today, but I'll take that. But I thought it'd be important that I give a personal update with regards to what the college and SUNY is doing to address the issue with COVID-19 or coronavirus. So I've been on daily calls with the chancellor. She is taking time out of her day, every day, including the weekends, to brief all the presidents and what SUNY is doing. So SUNY has recalled all students who are currently abroad, everyone. And those in the high-risk areas are getting from the State Department charter airplanes to fly back here, and then they get quarantined for 2 weeks. You might have heard that Buff State was considered for one of the residences for quarantine. They are now off the list, and it's Brockport. Now, currently, there have not been any, although that might have changed since I last heard, any COVID individuals in Western New York. I think it's just a matter of time, given how it's spread everywhere else. I know that Doug's on a call tomorrow regarding it. I know Penny's on a call with chief business officers. I just saw an Excel spreadsheet for COVID-related expenses. Paula's on a call almost daily with the chief, three today, yeah. Public information officers. So we are well informed as to what SUNY's doing and what DOH, New York State, is doing. I see everyone's kind of I forget, Deputy something for DOH, I forget his name now, but he's been on the calls with the chancellor. And we also have been in communication with the Department of Education for New York. And they have granted us, SUNY, discretion with regards to calendaring and how to provide a schedule for either students that have been brought back or students that we might have to engage in what are called social distancing interventions, meaning that students might need to complete their studies online or in some distance format. So DOE has allowed us to contravene our own policies and our own standards in this one instance, right? And that's how important it is considered by the state and by SUNY. Anything else I want to say about this? Any kind of initial questions right now just about how we're communicating with both state and county as well? Because one of the recommendations is that gatherings over 50, oh, there you go, yeah, over 50 individuals might be canceled, but the discretion has been subject to where you are regionally. Now, Westchester County is a different situation than we are, and so they might want to implement that policy. So there's a lot of discretion, and we're working closely with, obviously, our county sponsor and the county in terms of what would be relevant for us here. Amy Yoder is the SUNY designated person for all things COVID. Although all communications will be coming out of Paula's office, just because we need to coordinate, different things that Doug might be getting, Amy might be getting, myself, into one place so that there isn't any confusion as to what's the message, right? So all messages will come from Paula or my office or the combined office. We have a web page. Oh, you're doing it. Yeah. All right. Oh, yeah. This is our COVID-19 task force. Actually, go back. Oh, yeah, okay. So tomorrow we have a cabinet meeting. So we're going to spend the entire meeting talking about this and what is relevant for facilities, what is relevant for academic programming, student services, et cetera, et cetera. SUNY has asked us to come up with contingency plans. If and when, probably more when, we have to make modifications for the sake of students, right? So this includes, for instance, commencement, right? Meaning that that is a high volume, high touch. You imagine how many times I shake people's hands up there, right? You've seen it, right? That's probably not a good thing to do if we're trying to control the spread of the virus. So we're planning for all contingencies, and we're prepared. So we have guidance from SUNY. If this happens, this is what you should be doing. If this happens, this is what you should be doing. So we have a full cabinet meeting tomorrow. We sent out a communication, I believe, last week, and we will send a weekly communication to all staff, faculty, board members. I updated them yesterday. I will again in writing, but at least one from my office to the community once a week, just to let people know where we are. I think I've gotten several types of reactions from people. I've gotten parents asking that we go immediately to distance learning formats because they don't want their kids exposed to, and I've responded to them. I've had faculty, students saying we should wipe down keyboards, et cetera, exactly. So this has been forwarded to Tracy Gass. I don't know, I just thought I saw him. So we are looking into, right now actually, for our area, there hasn't been a recommendation for additional cleaning that would be different than any other time. Technically, that's what the non-recommendation is saying. But obviously, we can choose to do what we want to do and what's reasonable and what's appropriate. So, anything else about weekly communication? Okay, so now Amy Yoder and the task force. So this is the task force. Oh, also in terms of reactions, so you've probably seen the range, right? On one hand, people are responding like it's the zombie apocalypse because we've all been primed by those movies. When you see that global heat map growing, right, that there's going to be some zombie coming from the door, and then the other extreme is that it's just a flu, right? It's no big deal. And so it's probably somewhere in between would be the appropriate response. I think for us being instructors and administrators and staff, we have to create a certain tone that makes people feel assured that, one, that we're taking precautions, that we have their safety as our number one priority, and that we will address any disruption to their academic programming. Now, we do not have anyone abroad right now, so we haven't had to recall people. As you can imagine, some students in Italy say, screw you, I'm not coming back. I don't care if you give me a chartered plane, I'm not coming back. This is, but there's a spreadsheet of every student, what program they're in, their cell phone number, when they're coming back, where they're being quarantined, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen it. We did have a program going to Italy. So culinary students typically go to the Amalfi Coast to learn how to cook things Italian. We have since canceled that given that there's a lockdown actually in the entire country of Italy now. Before it was just the north, and now the Prime Minister has decided to lock it down completely. So it's probably not a good idea for us to be sending students there. We're actually looking at reimbursement, obviously, because we paid in advance. But you should know all travel agencies, airlines have been very flexible about cancellation, so we're hoping to get that back. And we have created a web page for all things Corona. Yeah, you want to link it? Okay, so you can come to this as a resource. You get the idea. But here we are. Can we go back to the last? Just want to see if there's anything else. Yeah. So there will be a weekly communication to all staff, students, and faculty from my office. There is this web page, and it will be updated throughout the week. So that will be our kind of, if you want this in between my weekly updates, you can go to the website for more recent information. And the last thing is, SUNY really thinks it's extremely important that students don't have their academic progress impeded by Corona. And so they have provided a huge PDF, which I sent to you, right? So Todd Larson is the provost for all of SUNY, and, oh, you want to click it? Oh, it's been posted? Yeah. So in terms of online protocols, and basically how do we implement spatial distancing if we need to. That the priority is that we are flexible, that we need to be flexible to serve student needs, and that their academic progress is not impeded. So let me turn it over to Doug, who will speak more specifically about, oh, you got a question? Go ahead.
Quick question.
Yep.
On a practical basis, can we just get hand sanitizer wipes put in the different labs and classrooms and stuff like that immediately? We put a request in last week to do it.
Right.
And it should have been done by now. I mean, it's a simple thing. And
I'll have Tracy, can you speak to that? I did send in, everything I received I forwarded to Tracy with regards to sanitization, additional cleanings of hard
we
surfaces.
sent it in the maintenance help desk. But
Yep.
We are working on it. Some of that product is very difficult to come by. In fact, our cleaners right now, as we speak, are going through a training course on how to clean coronavirus type equipment, and we've bought a lot of additional hand sanitizer stuff that we're waiting for it to be delivered. If you've been to your grocery store, it's hard to find Lysol, it's hard to find anything right now.
Yeah.
So we're working very hard on obtaining that stuff, plus the training that's going on and the extra equipment that we're purchasing to combat this when it gets here. Again, we're trying to be as proactive as we can be. If that answers your question.
So it's in the works, and well, we know that Costco, many pharmacies are completely out because people have just stocked up, but we've put an order in, and we're having trouble getting it, as is everyone else. Greg?
I saw this morning that New York State is making it, prisoners are making it, and they're supplying it for free.
Yeah. Yep. They're making it, but yeah, hopefully we'll have access to it fairly soon. But we've put in orders, and Greg, did they say when it would be available to the public? And
No.
no, right. Okay. As you've probably seen, the governor has put New York under a state of emergency. Now, understand that that is a procedural thing, an administrative criteria to access state funds, right? So I know state of emergency sounds more serious than in this case it actually is. Any other questions before I turn it over to Doug to talk about what we might have to do in terms of academic accommodations if, again, it's if we have to before the semester ends? Anything else? Okay. Doug?
Sure. So SUNY has charged us with preparing and planning for the continuity of academic programming. In short, I translate that as how can we help salvage the semester for students depending upon what happens? And we don't exactly know what is going to happen or when, if something's going to happen. And so I put together some thinking and some planning that will actually come out to all faculty email later in the week. Once I'm sure it's wordsmithed and it's going well. But here's the thinking. Well, let's plan now. Let's plan for what might happen so that it doesn't, when whatever happens, we're not thinking it through when we can't come to campus or when you can't teach because you're not feeling well or you're on self-quarantine or whatever that is. Let's give it some thought now. So in essence, what my email memo says to faculty is, would you please do some thinking and planning for the following circumstances in case this happens? And probably in likelihood, some form of this will happen. So imagine that you have a student who needs to self-quarantine for 14 days, or is directed to self-quarantine, or in fact is sick and needs to be absent for several weeks. Recognize that they will be directed not to go see a treatment provider. So they will not have documentation of their absence. So faculty I ask you to take a look at your attendance policies and say, I usually require I always require documented excuse. In H1N1, we knew no one was allowed to go to their doctors, and so they were not going to have, the campus health services said, don't come here. They're not going to have a note. So I'm going to ask faculty to take a look at your attendance policies to be ready for that circumstance, that students may be absent and they will not be able to have documentation. It goes beyond that, of course. Well, what if a student needs to be absent for 2 or 3 weeks because of either self-quarantining or actual illness? How can we help that student salvage the semester? And so I'm going to ask faculty to give some thought to that. And so some of the common ways are extensions, make-up exams, perhaps independent study, distance education, or an incomplete, or perhaps looking at your course, some other solution. Obviously, thinking about how we can do that is going to depend upon your course. Is it a lecture discussion? Is it a lab? Is it a clinical/internship? And so forth. And the only person who knows all the details of your course is the faculty member, right? So we're asking you to do that thinking in advance. Besides a student who might be self-quarantining or ill, the faculty member may be directed to self-quarantine for 14 days or may be ill themselves. So how can we salvage that semester, those courses that that faculty member is teaching? Some of that time you may be twiddling your thumbs just under quarantine, and you may say, I can do this. I can get a lot of the material, maybe all of it, maybe a portion of it, to the students via distance ed, or they can do independent study, and you can direct your students to do a lot of the other stuff while you need to be out, work on your projects, so forth. So give some thought for each different section you teach, how you would salvage that semester. So I'm asking faculty to do that thinking for the 2 to 3 week absence of themselves or the students. And then the second circumstance that we need to think about is, what if, as has happened at Harvard, Princeton, Ohio State, and a number of other colleges, we came to the decision or the need or the direction that we need to suspend face-to-face instruction from X date through the end of the semester. If that were to happen, how could we salvage each course for the semester? So when I send out this email, I'm going to ask actually for faculty to look at each section and do that same exercise. If that were to happen, and I plan to attach a spreadsheet and ask you to identify your discipline, course number, section number, and really just answer at this very preliminary date, because we don't know, it's going to be very different if it was tomorrow or if it was the last week of instruction, right? But if that were to happen at some point, would you, 1, use distance ed? Would you, 2, use, trying to think. Incomplete was number 3, wasn't it?
We could bring it up again if you want.
Distance ed, independent study.
Hybrid. There was-
3, no, mine was keeping it brief and simple, because we don't know what date this is going to happen. If it happens at all, it could be very different. So distance ed, independent study, incomplete, or other. Again, if it's a lab course or a clinical, distance ed may be precluded. If it's a lecture discussion, you might go, I can do this, distance ed. So we'll ask faculty to do that for each section that you teach, so that we've asked you to do the intellectual work, which is good, and we'll ask you to share that with your chair, who will send it to the dean, and in my vision, we'll have one giant spreadsheet with knowing that we have begin preliminarily thinking through how we might do this. And the idea also, the reason to have it centrally is not just having asked you to do that exercise, but if we get to that point, if a student can't reach you, although we will direct them to email to reach faculty if there's this issue, if they called us, we could say, well, let us check. Your instructor told us that they're going to be using this. They're going to be doing an incomplete for nursing clinical. So take a breath, or whatever it is, at least we'll have that information. So so I'll have that call to action in this email to please identify each section and what very preliminarily your plan will be, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and if it's 4 other, indicate your initial thinking. It's way too early. We don't know what and when things will happen. So I'm just going to ask you to do that and send it in so we'll at least have an idea that we are all working in our areas to protect the academic program for each of our students. So that's the idea right now. We'll send that out this week, ask you to get that to us the beginning of next week. Any questions or anything I missed?
Do you want? Go ahead.
I have 2 questions basically about the mechanics of this. So the first is that in the past, the belief is that the syllabus is basically a contract. So if you tell your students you have X amount of papers or presentation or a test, that you have to stick to that. So let's say that you have in your syllabus that you're going to have 4 papers and a presentation.
Yeah, so at the beginning, I said the New York State Ed has given us discretion to contravene our own policies, including a syllabus in this case, in this particular case.
So we could drop an assignment or change one type of assignment to another.
I
Yes.
apologize for my ignorance. When I was faculty, the policy at my institution was that the syllabus could be changed in writing during the semester. But here we have state guidance that, in fact, we can do what we need to do. But I, of course, would encourage that to be a formal, in writing, here's the change, here's the attached revised syllabus with a date on it, that kind of thing. Good question.
Okay, the second question has to do with a faculty member that might be sick or under quarantine. So in the past, we've had faculty member who've had to go out for a while on some sort of disability kind of thing, and who could have done courses online, and were told by HR, no, you're either in or you're out. You can't be doing this course from at home. So what is that policy also going to be contravened so we can, stay out and work from home?
It's a good question. It will be
Yeah.
we've got that guidance, and HR, one of those task forces was in fact HR,
Yeah.
and in fact FFECC has reached out and said, we want to be in, I read it as conversation, at any contemplation of doing things. So that's a good question because we would bump into that precedent and have to work with what is the new reality in terms of this emergency. Yeah.
The only thing I want to add is the other issue that we've talked about in our president's meeting is travel during spring break. So not only for students, but also for faculty and staff. And we're not trying to curtail, but there are guidelines about how to take travel precautions. Everyone has this? Yeah, okay, all right. And what countries are, and this will be updated, obviously, to where you're linking. But it may be, if you do know of students who are traveling to any of those countries and coming back, then we certainly should know about it. Technically, they need to be quarantined for like if they went to China and back, they'd have to be quarantined for 2 weeks.
I just want to add that I heard this morning that the CDC is now saying everybody should stay off of cruise ships. So,
Cruise ships?
yes.
Oh, darn, yeah. Right. Penny? Yep.
I just had a follow-up question because we've had an issue arise. I know that we've got direction on people coming back from other countries.
Yes.
But we are starting to have people visiting the hotspots in the U.S. and
Yep.
then coming back.
No, currently, as of my understanding this morning, there has been no restrictions within the United States. Yep. Yep.
So our task force is led by Amy Yoder, Mark Pacholik, and Mark Connors. Mark Pacholik?
Can everybody hear me? I literally, and I know Penny was briefed on this, literally just got off a conference call on the way over here from city campus with the county. Deputy Commissioner Greg Butcher from Emergency Services. As of half an hour ago.
Yeah, good.
There is no direction or guidance or requirements by the county as far as reporting any travel inside of the United States,
Yeah.
to include places that are like Westchester County or Kirkland, Washington. The only thing they're advising is if you feel any of the symptoms, then to obviously report it. That's
Right.
it.
Right, good. Which was my understanding as well. So again, that was half an hour ago. This is a very fluid, dynamic situation, and that's why we're having one web page and one source of communication. So, you know, you heard something a half hour ago, it's no longer relevant. So we're trying to maintain some. Bill?
I was just going to say, some large local medical facilities have actually started putting those restrictions on,
Oh, have they?
where now if you travel outside of the state, and actually they've even restricted to New York City, that you're not allowed to go to work for 2 weeks.
New York City? Mm.
That's correct.
Okay.
So Roswell
Well,
put
we
that out
haven't,
this morning. I've seen the email, as my wife is a clinical coordinator there.
Well, I
And-
think for medical professionals, it's a different situation. They're the number one most vulnerable. Yeah, but in terms of no, they're not vulnerable, but they can have the most dangerous people too. But as Mark just said, just half an hour ago, there has not been any prescription with regards to us. Mark, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I kind of want to put some of this in a proper perspective. Amy and I get an update from different, Amy and I get updates from different places 2 or 3 times a day. And this is the latest update from the CDC as far as the cases in each state, each country, and what the State Department determines a level 3, like China, Iran, and stuff. This changes daily. Outside of those 5 countries that have been identified as a level 3 place, there's a couple of countries where they urge caution. There is nothing in the U.S. that is on that CDC list that urges caution, whether it be New York City or any of those places. All right, just so everybody knows that.
And Colleen just told me that her husband works at Roswell Park, and he's a geneticist. He's been asked to stay home. Now, that's because in medical facilities, including Roswell, people are immunosuppressed. Immunosuppressed. You got the idea. They're more vulnerable to, and that makes sense that if you're in Westchester for a while, that you would have to report it to your employer.
Right, but my point is that also Roswell's a state affiliated. Obviously, they're going to take precautions first, but looking down the line, even though it doesn't, it does sound like that would snowball accordingly. Unfortunately for my wife, she doesn't get to stay home. She's considered essential personnel.
Yes.
We had to shut down the campus of this college in '76
Okay.
because of weather. We'd lost 2 weeks total
Right.
up to Thanksgiving, and at Thanksgiving time, they just shut the college down, told us to put the grades together as best we could,
Right.
which people did. Everybody, including the part-time people, got paid as though it was the regular semester, and we didn't have the computer capability then. So if that happens, it shouldn't be the end of the world.
Right. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
State Ed has also given guidance with regard to, the goal is academic equivalence, but they are also giving us leeway to some degree with regard to contact hours, Carnegie units, with the goal of academic equivalence. And so the idea here is, yes, in terms of our planning, we may not have face-to-face contact, and you may be delivering something distance ed that's not registered as distance ed, all of that stuff. But our goal is academic equivalence, that the student learns, and we get them as well as we can to have that continuity of their academic program. But yes, so they are giving us leeway with regard to various policies as well as the contact hour. So it's really, in that sense, it depends when and what happens. So is it a week or two before the end of the semester, or is it tomorrow? It would have a difference, because we wouldn't have academic equivalence if it was tomorrow to say, okay, we're done, wrap it up. But they've also given permission, and I don't know that we would take this, of partial academic credit. So it's a 3-credit class, but you only went halfway through, so you're getting 1.5 credits. That might not be helpful for the whole academic program, but so this is the planning that we're trying to do, how will we get to our students to have academic equivalence, and salvage the semester. So, and there's also a webinar that Scott Welchin is going to be on, was either today or tomorrow, regarding financial aid and how they're looking at those policies, because obviously an incomplete, if a student enters next fall with an incomplete, currently they may have an issue with financial aid, and obviously they're going to be looking at how they'll bend those, and Scott is on that call.
Now, I just want to say that the state is making recommendations for the entire state, but again, there is discretion region to region. It's very different, for Westchester County. I think our only vulnerability is our proximity to the Canadian border. Toronto is a major gateway to the rest of the world, and they've had a few incidences of people with COVID, but they're not any worse than us, so to speak. So currently that's not a concern at all. Why we also sent this to you is to address questions about, I think the other vulnerability is myths about, there was a myth about using Tito vodka to wash your hands, which wasn't good for marketing for Tito's, nor was it good for people washing their hands because it didn't have a high enough alcohol content. But that's why we sent this out. The hand sanitizer has to have at least 60% alcohol for it to be effective. There's a question there.
Is there any discussion about fall? Because they're seriously thinking that
Yeah.
it may wane in the summer and rear up again in the fall. Are you guys thinking about the fall semester at all?
Yes, but I'm worried about tomorrow first, because again, this could happen tomorrow, tonight.
Yeah.
Check your email now.
Yeah, it is very dynamic. And we are learning from other places what to do and what our best practices. So coming from Seattle, I know faculty at the University of Washington, and classes have been canceled, right, completely. There's no one on campus. And so we're actually seeing what's working and what isn't in other places of the country. So I think we'll be really prepared by the time anything happens here. Greg?
Rensselaer Polytech closed.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Just okay. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. Mike? Which Mike? Oh, I thought Mike Delaney. Okay. Okay. Anything else? I know we've probably taken up too much time into the Senate, but it's important. Yep. Yes. Hi.
Is it working? Okay. So you said you're reaching out to academic departments to fill out the spreadsheet. Would you also like feedback from the libraries of what we can offer to support the students and what we have available online and how we can do embedded and virtual reference and things like
I
that?
had a conversation, again, this is all happening fast. Had a conversation at 11 a.m. with Pat Ryan. So absolutely in terms of, and Mina has provided a document on remote access tools available that we're going to include in this email. So yes, when we send this out, any department should also be thinking about how will you deliver your service, financial aid, registrar, library, and if you have supports that can be added to perhaps this tools for, to either we'll be able to share it or perhaps link it on that website. So absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm focused on the classes, but any of our functional offices should be thinking about how do we function if in fact we have low staff or our students are not on campus and they need to do our service at a distance. So,
Okay, thanks.
And I think if we think through that individually for all of our own functions, then when it happens and you get an email or a rave alert that says don't come to work today or whatever, you've already kind of started thinking and being like, okay, bring your laptop home when you go. Those sort of preparations and so forth. Okay.
Anything else? Last call for questions about COVID. No. And do not watch the movie Contagion. It apparently is the most popular movie now. People are 2011 with Matt Damon. It's actually quite good.
My favorite is World War Z with Brad Pitt, but
Thank
the
you.
zombie apocalypse.
Well, for those readers out there, I prefer Station 11. So, if we're really going to go pandemic-y. All right, so just to recap that, and one important piece is that there's going to be one central piece of communication that's going to come out. It's going to come out from Paula Sandy's office, and it's going to be on the website. And with that, any inquiries with the college should be coming out of our Marcom department and not from people that work here, not in the Marcom department. All right, and so with that, wash your hands and have your students wash your hands, greet each other with jazz hands, maybe bump elbows. But most important also is FERPA, okay? You cannot walk up to a student and be like, oh, you're sneezing, do you have coronavirus? Or anything like that. You cannot do that because there is that whole atmosphere in the classroom, right? Now, students are being discriminated against across the country for various reasons, because they are of Asian descent, because they might be Mexican, and people don't understand that coronavirus isn't from Mexico. All right, you need to be conscious of your classroom and the atmosphere in our classrooms, and our students, because they could be nervous about this, and it's our perception and how we react that's going to influence how they react. And another piece with that, with FERPA, I've heard a few things here and there. Just to remind everybody, with FERPA, if a parent calls you on the phone or emails you, you are not allowed to talk to them. That's actually the biggest perk about teaching in college. All right? They have to sign a FERPA waiver. It is in the registrar's office. You cannot take a parent's word, because I would lie. Yeah, I know it. My kids signed it, right? I would totally lie. I have 4 boys. I'm sure they're going to be doing all sorts of screwball stuff, right? You need to verify it with your own actual eyeballs with the registrar's office, all right? So just keep that in mind, especially as we're moving forward with all of this stuff. And that is not just limited to academics, but that's medical records, all of that. You cannot ask a student, do you have COVID-19? Any of that stuff. That is confidential and none of your business, okay? So just keeping that in mind, and for our students. So, well, it's 3:15. It's March. It's my favorite month. It's International Women's Day, International Women's Month, right? And then we have Pi Day, of course, which is fantastic. And it's also the same day as the Old First Ward Parade, because we're moving into St. Patrick's Week. Got my green on, and of course, St. Joseph's Table, Ides of March. One of my kids has a birthday in there somewhere, all sorts of fun stuff. But as far as College Senate, we don't have anything to vote on today, so we just have a couple of, updates. Let's see. So moving through old business, Joanne has an update as far as the SUNY Guided Pathways and the Task Force for Meta Majors in the Guided Pathways that we're using for the website. Thank you, Joanne.
Hi, everybody. And I'm presenting for Andy. He's on a Guided Pathways phone call. So we wanted to update the college community on what we did with Guided Pathways up to this point. Beginning in January, on January 31st, February 7th, and then February 14th, so 3 Fridays in a row, a group of faculty and administrators gathered mostly in this room on 3 Fridays to work on Guided Pathways. And we went into it saying we wanted to begin doing the work of Guided Pathways. So there were different groups invited to participate in these working sessions. And we were calling it a series, a Guided Pathways series. The faculty and groups that were invited were members of the Guided Pathways home team, which is myself, Andy, Anesi, Katie Marshall from Career Development, Colleen Quinn, Dave Uzinski, who am I missing? Doug. And I think that's it for our home team. I hope I'm not, I'll think of it if I'm missing somebody. And then we invited groups, the participants in NCDC, so our curriculum committees, NCDC and CWCC, and then the Senate task force that was put together for roadmaps, and then the Senate task force that was put together for program clusters. So all of the people on these various committees were invited to participate in this series. We had three, as I mentioned. The first one was focused on mapping pathways and how we're going to do academic roadmaps. We watched a webinar all about academic roadmaps, and then we actually did the work of mapping. And what we did was we took program clusters. So we took our 100-degree programs, and the home team had come up with some ideas for clusters. And we put all these folks in 2 different rooms, and we had paper on the wall and stickies, and we literally took the programs and put them in the different clusters. It was very active, hands-on work. And we came out of that with some suggestions, some differences of opinion, but some work on where our programs should be. The purpose of that activity was to put together clusters for our new website, so that when students come to our new website, they see our programs categorized and organized in these cluster areas. So that was the first day. The second day, we did a little bit more talk and learning about what meta majors are. And the idea is putting programs that are very similar so that students would have a common first semester. So if they were in business administration AS, business administration AAS, we would work to try and get those students to have a common first semester or a first year. That's kind of the big, broad picture of meta majors, but we learned about that. And then we did a group activity to start doing some road mapping. Then the last one, we went back to those program clusters. We took the program clusters that were coming out of marketing, we put those together, and we actually meet tomorrow to finalize those program clusters. So the final product will be in our new website. When students go to it, all of our degree programs will fall under, I believe we settled on 9. I think we're going to have 9 categories. And those categories are business, health, trades and construction, STEM. So you will see those at the next Senate meeting. And I think those are the major topics. And that group, we hope, it was really, I actually loved it. It was engaging. I think the people that participated liked it, and there are plans to get that group together to do that, to continue that work. I think that's it. Any questions or concerns?
All right. Thank you, Joanne.
Okay.
Next up, we have the adjudication committee and process. So the Senate exec met with Patrina, and what happened is there was a hiccup in communication and transcription. So we worked together. Things are getting tweaked a little bit in the actual procedure. It's a draft currently right now. We're shooting for it to be ready today. It's going to be ready for the April meeting, as well as the academic integrity complaint form. So those are coming in April. Did I miss anything? That's good, right? Okay, so there's that. And then we had a scheduling resolution in December. We were waiting on a response from the college. Oh, that's the wrong window. We did get one. And there it is. From Dr. Scheid at the end of February. And it's been out. We sent it out to the Faculty Caucus of the Senate, and it's been registered out there. It's been on the website. I'm not sure if anyone or everyone has had an opportunity to view it, but I know it went out to the listserv for Faculty Caucus of the Senate. So that is there. And if you have any questions with that, you can feel free to contact me or contact me. Michael Reel, governance. So we have some voting updates.
Yes, do you have a document? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So election cycle begins, it will run through College Day. We'll be running an election for full-time librarians and technical assistants. The other seats, nominations were received and they're unopposed. And we have a number of vacancies and would accept nominations or recommendations for appointments to those seats at this time. And those would be terms that would start in June.
Right. There is one misprint on here. The FCCC delegate alternate is going to be fulfilled by Karen Huffman from biology.
Okay.
She did nominate in time. I know we talked about it, but it was a PDF, so I couldn't fix it. But so there are all those, and those will be for College Day.
Yes, we're going to try to run an electronic ballot election for those two groups, and then we'll have a polling station at College Day as well.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Okay, we passed the task force for student expectations at the last Senate meeting. So we have the membership, and we still need 2 students from SGA. So I'll be sending an email to our SGA officers to find 2 students that would like to participate on this. And then we'll let everyone know when the next meeting is and have hopefully an update in April. Speaking of April, the Senate meeting is the 21st. It's after spring break because with the calendar changes, it was the 14th, but now it's the 21st. All right. Actually, before, because I forgot, the calendar is up. Calendar was approved at the last Board of Trustees meeting. It's posted on the page. And so here is the fall 2020. Again, it was approved by FFECC Executive Council, and it was approved at the last Board of Trustees meeting. It was in the consent agenda. And you can see there that instruction begins the Friday before Labor Day, and that's because Labor Day is so late this year. So FFECC and the President's Office came to an agreement to start the semester on that Friday. Okay, and so we have the winter schedule and the spring schedule. And to the best of our knowledge, it does meet up with the Erie One BOCES. I looked it up and verified it with my own eyeballs. So even if your home school district has not released a calendar yet, the breaks do match. Okay, so that's there for you. It's posted. I'll include it on my email on Thursday as well. It's also posted on the Board of Trustees page from their January meeting. Okay, so new business, and so I'm just going to call on, I'm Michael Rio again. So we have a new bylaw change to clarify senator duties in attendance. So you can see up here, so it's a bylaw change, so we have to introduce it at this meeting, and then we can vote on it at the next meeting. So if there's any questions or things that we feel as a body need to be added, now is the time. Michael.
Well, this resolution or motion is just clarifying what it means to be available for College Senate meetings. So faculty and students should be available based on eliminating conflicts that they may have with their schedule, which would be not scheduling classes or skipping a class to be here.
Okay. So the change is going to be on number 4, where instead of saying, the old language said, senators need to be available on Tuesdays, so the new language kind of expands that a little bit to say faculty teaching responsibilities should not conflict with scheduled meetings of the College Senate. Student representatives should not be absent from scheduled classes in order to attend scheduled meetings of the College Senate. Availability of a senator to attend all meetings of the College Senate requires availability for the duration of that term. Okay, because also as faculty members, our first obligation is to teach. So if we're scheduled to teach in a classroom, we should be teaching. Does anyone have any questions, anything that they feel is missing that would require further clarification for any other area of the college? Greg?
Let's see. What about a lab where the department technician usually watches the lab anyway? Does the faculty member, given that?
Well, then it'll be against the bylaws, so they won't be eligible to be a senator.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you're saying.
So what I'm saying is if a faculty member is on the books to be teaching from 2 to 5 on a Tuesday, they have to be in their class, and they are not eligible to be a senator. That's what this bylaw change says.
I understand. You keep saying teaching. So if a faculty member is in the classroom and the technician is in the lab, is the faculty member required to be in the lab with the technician?
Is the faculty member getting paid the same amount as the technician observing and watching the class?
No.
Well, I think that answers our question. I think it's a theft of services for the students if they are expecting their instructor to be in the classroom for the amount of time they're paying for.
You keep saying classroom. There's 2 rooms. You can't be in 2 places at the same time.
If your name is on a course and it's
You have to be-
a professor's name is listed as the instructor for the course and it's scheduled at the time of the Senate, they're not eligible to be a senator. That's what this bylaw is saying. Sabrina?
I don't know in this day of more and more restricted schedules that any one of us can predict, like within the next 3 years, that we will not be required to teach a class at a certain time, especially in case of some emergency measure like we had just this semester where a faculty member is out for a whole semester and everybody's scrambling to cover her classes.
That happens, and we had that with our ESL representative, Caitlin Bierkrey. So she resigned, and we have someone that's going to be appointed in her place because our first obligation to the college is to our students. Pam? Or Mary, sorry.
Shauna.
Sean,
So what about the people who are not teaching faculty but are still senators? Aren't they actually working during this time?
we can make additional, that's what I'm saying, we could add additional things that speak to all different representation. So we could add that non-teaching faculty have, I don't know, whatever your suggestion is.
It was just a question, not a suggestion, but I mean, if they're technically supposed to be doing whatever their job is, that would not be this.
Michael Delaney?
My understanding has been that people who have been elected to the college senate, who are actually on the clock while they're here, have been, I don't know if it's granted official permission, but certainly no one has made an objection to them attending as a senator. And I think that this bylaw is probably making kind of a distinction, which, I mean, I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying it's, you know, there's been an understanding that, for example, counselors or librarians who are elected to the Senate have been able to attend Senate meetings on the clock.
No, we can most certainly add a clause that addresses that non-teaching faculty,
Yeah, and
because
of
it
course-
is a obligation of the college.
And of course, members of the SES and the AAECC
Right.
have attended Senate meetings on the clock as well.
We can make those changes. Greg?
Will this set a precedence for all meetings at the college?
If it gets passed. Oh, for all meetings? No, this is the college senate bylaws. These are our laws.
Will it set a precedence?
I don't know. I'm not in charge of the other meetings. Just this one. All right, so we're going to send this back to governance to make sure that we address our non-teaching members of the college, to include AAECC, SES, non-teaching faculty, that if you are a senator, it is, you know, you're voted in to speak for your constituency and part of the job. I'm sure the language will be much nicer than what I just said, because I'm not an English teacher. Oh, Michael Rio's an English teacher. Boom. Are there any other questions or concerns about that bylaw? Yes.
Hi, I was wondering, so as a student government president, would this mean that I wouldn't be eligible if I had a class during that time? Or say there was no other option for me to have a class, but at this time? And then also, I have 2 jobs on campus as president. I also work in ITS. I know you'd have to schedule it so at a time that, to account for getting from south to north, or to city, or north, my bad. So does that mean that due to this change, I wouldn't be allowed to be a president, per se, if I have a class at that time?
No, we don't have anything to do with who's the president of SGA. SGA, the presidents get to be voting members here, and if they are unable to attend because they have a class or other obligations, they do have a designee, which is the next person in line, which is the secretary.
Right, but this, as far as I'm aware, this is saying that you can't be on this board, which that's a responsibility of a president for student government if you have a class during that time.
That is correct.
Well, it does say student representatives.
Students should
Yes.
not miss classes to come to the Senate.
Okay,
Absolutely not, because your education is first and foremost.
all right, thank you.
And that's why we have student designees in the place of the presidents of each campus to attend in their place. And we've also made exceptions so that the event coordinators could also vote in their absence of the other officers if necessary, because the student's education is first. Are there any other questions? Any other additions? Any other people I'm missing on this that we need to be addressing? All right, so we're going to kick it back to governance. And we'll see what the modifications look like in April. All right, Mina, for the workday? No, maybe? Oh. All right. We all know about Workday. Thank you, Mina.
So the project is very active, and it is lots of stuff going on. That's why we said no great big deliverables as yet. So we are working on 4 work streams in parallel, and that includes basically 4 to 5 to 6 working in parallel. I think I shared the document in the past, what all those include. But we are hoping that by the end of the year, we will have the student registration piece completed if we have enough resources lined up. And the policy work and the documentation of the workflows that we have are something that we are really experiencing that they are lacking. We do not have as much documentation on things, and we have lots of processes that don't have policies behind it. So there's lots of work that is going on, and it's all development work, and we hope to have basically delivered by the end of the year if there are enough resources.
Great. Thank you, Mina.
Fabio, anyone else want to add? Fabio?
Okay, so I forgot to put this on the agenda, but we're at the point of the meeting that if we are fortunate enough to have a little bit of extra time, where we talk about things that are concerns across the college that perhaps you had heard of that we have not heard, and we'd like to call it for the good of the order. And then just to point or touch on, I suppose, something that was brought up during the FERPA conversation. I know hand sanitizers and Lysol and all of that is at with price gouging outside, but myself, I am in a computer lab, so I bought Lysol and Lysol wipes, and I just bring them with me because I have little people at my house that I don't need to be transmitting diseases to. So I know it's not a requirement, and yes, we should try to have those things supplied by the college, but if we can't get it supplied by the college and you happen to have a supply, and you're worried about it, do yourself a solid and bring it in. Anything for the good of the order? Greg?
I don't know if it's really good at the order. I do have a question.
Yeah, questions work.
we're working on our accreditation. So apparently, we've had two different, in fact, we were told it was approved by the Senate, the syllabuses. One was done a year and a half ago, one was done 6 months ago. There is a difference between what was sent to us and the technologies, as far as the format goes. We have a different format for TAC ABET, and we have another format for middle states. So are we supposed to write our syllabuses 3 times, or will one suit all?
So I'm not aware of any middle states requirements for, yeah, I'm getting the shake. If you want to back me up, because I've never heard of that.
The middle state standards call for a wide range of instructional materials to be created in support of the instructional mission of the college. Obviously, syllabi are a fairly standard industry product, but there is no specified format, Greg. So there's nothing that middle states specifically requires, either with regard to our course outlines or with regard to syllabi.
Right, and when we approved the syllabus template, all of those requirements were taken into account when it was passed. And faculty are not required to use the actual template, although it is a suggestion because it creates consistency for our students across courses. You just have to make sure you have all of the information in the syllabus. Any other, Jason Steinitz?
You know, I can't not say anything.
Go for it.
Given the discussion about COVID-19 and spreading germs and all that, a lot of the restrooms at the college do not have faucets that can be used without touching, without holding them down. I know the men's rooms at South Campus, you have to actually hold the thing down in order to rinse one hand and then hold it down to rinse the other hand. I understand that we can't go replacing every faucet at the college, but could there be something like, you know, surface cleaning wipes or something made available in the restrooms so that you can spray or quickly wipe the faucet handles before you have to use them?
Tracy said sure. No, he's going to make Mark talk. Thank you, Mark.
Who am I addressing this to?
Jason.
Jason, Mark Petrulik, nice to meet you. First of all, you have to look at things in a practical sense of things. You know, we were looking at what other colleges around the country are doing as far as cleaning protocols and everything, whether they're cleaning it daily, weekly, whatever. But there becomes a practical standpoint. If you clean a surface, say facilities cleans it at the end of every school day, whether it be a computer lab or a bathroom or a railing, the moment one human being touches it, it's not just COVID. Let's look at something that's potentially much more infectious, you know, any of the flus. You know, if we put it in perspective, you have a lot more people dying of the flu. So we have to be practical in what we can do, not only physically, but, you know, logistically. As Tracy said before, you know, some of these things have a 2-month back order right now. They're just non-existent in the States. So we're working on that. The cleaning classes are going on today at one campus. Tomorrow, the other 2 campuses are getting them. We're getting sprayers in. We are working to that end. Does that answer your question? Paper, yeah, and part of this is procedural. All right, human beings are creatures of habit. If you think about it, you know, I go to the bathroom every day, you know, have to. I go there, I press the paper towel thing so they're ready to grab. I turn the water on. I then lather for 20 seconds. You pick the song you want to sing. I then dry my hands. I use that paper towel to exit. So it becomes a habit that you have to get yourself into.
Patty?
Just to comment on, we've been in flu season for several months, cold season for several months. The hand sanitizers at City Campus and the building I teach in have been empty the entire time. They're really nice dispensers all over the place, but long before this started, they've been empty.
Okay, thank you. And then just another thing for everybody with sanitary wipes and everything, they don't work right away. Just if you read the small print, you got to wait 10 minutes, and then you got to wipe it down again. So just another thing, if you're walking around with wipes and you wipe something down, that doesn't mean you're magically immune. Paper towel thing's probably the best. Other things. Joanne, got to use the mic.
I got more involved with advisement assignments with the general studies change, so I just thought I'd mention it as for kind of the good of the order. Registration opens, it looks like March 30th is what's coming out of the registrar's office today. So if you need to get an updated list of your advisees, I sent that out to my faculty late last week. I'm not sure if everyone's gotten those, but you can, or ask your secretary to run a list from Informer. There's an Informer list called advisees, and you can run a list and get your list of current advisees, because that's changed since fall with attrition and with graduations and things. So hopefully over the next couple weeks, you can run your list of advisees and get prepared for registration on March 30th.
Great, thank you, Joanne. I'm making a mental note of that myself, because I'm like, I need to do that for me.
You should have gotten it from me. And then the other thing is, all of your office hours will be posted on the new advisement website. So students are going to receive communication, I believe next week. I don't know if Steve's here, but next week, that'll tell them to go on to their program eval, find their advisor, and then office hours are posted on our advisement website. So students, that's what students are receiving.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have Sabrina?
I'd like to follow up on a question with what Joanne just said there, because if we have an issue where we have to quarantine or close down for a while, we have to make some plans for advisement as well. And it's been my experience with the students I've advised that they don't really know how to register online. It's like I'll sit them down at my computer and take them through that process. So we had better be preparing for doing remote advisement and having students being able to register for fall online.
It's a very good point. And actually, because of Joanne's reminder, I'm planning on emailing all of my students tomorrow so that I can get ahead of it. And just a reminder, it doesn't have to be open registration to advise your students. You can always do that ahead of time, and that might be something wise to consider if anything were to happen. Mary?
Just a simple request. Is it possible for the agenda for this meeting to be put up online in a PDF file so that it can be downloaded to a phone? I can't open the Word docs on the phone, so.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
just never thought of that.
Yeah, thanks.
I do it for my online classes, but I don't do it here.
And most of the other documents are PDFs, so
Yeah.
that I can get them, but the minutes never are, so thank you.
All right, you got to remind me of that. All right. All right, Erica's going to remember that for me. But no, thank you. Anything else? All right, well, it is 3:43. We are 7 days away from St. Patrick's Day with Pi Day 314 in the middle. So I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Jazz hands to everyone, and we'll see you in April. Hopefully.